So hello, I guess good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Welcome to the third and final Assembly of Members for the International Land Coalition. Today we're focused on the 2022 to 2030 strategy. I'm Lisa Witter and I'm the co-founder of Apolitical and the CEO of the Apolitical Foundation. And I'm so honored to be part of your community today. I'm your guide, or if you like music, your DJ. I've had the honor of working with and around ILC now for about 7 years in some way, and I just have so much respect for all your work. So thank you for having me. Translation is available. I want to recognize all the people we're seeing from around the world. Cameroon just came in, and Bolivia. We do have that interpretation button. If you will click on that, you should be able to pick up Spanish and French. I will, whenever possible, read out polls so you can follow along if you don't read the English. So we're going to try to be supportive as we can in multiple languages. If you haven't already, so many of you have, we're up to 121 people right now. Do post your name, your organization, and your location. It's such a good way to get a sense of who's here. And if you're feeling up for it, maybe one word how you're feeling right now. Get a sense of a giant mood of all the people who are here to learn about the strategy and hear more. Now, I hope you had a chance to see the countdown video. We will share that if you haven't. I'm just curious if anyone saw themselves in that video, or if you knew someone there. I thought it was such a nice way to collect the different moments that ILC has brought you all together. So now this is one of my favorite parts, what we're gonna do. So if everyone can click into gallery view and turn on your cameras, what we're going to do is try to make, in this weird technological age, like eye contact with people, and we're going to wave at one another, and you're going to click through to the screens until you get a chance to scan through everyone. So everyone, maybe turn on your cameras. Thank you, Leonard, Viday, and Patrick. Make sure you click through all the screens so you can see. There's Ernesto and Douglas. We have Margarita and David. We keep going, Das. I see Just and Stefano and Joy. I'm gonna keep going. There's Lucy. Nice to see you all. Hello, Michelle. I really want to also recognize that I know we're still in a COVID crisis around the world, and many of you are working from home. You may have a child in the background, or a pet, or a partner, or there may be something going on. We just ask you to show up in the best way you can and respect that. We see Amanda wearing a mask. She's so committed that she has a mask on during this. So thank you everyone for showing up as your full selves. We're here for and by people. So we wanted to really recognize that with you. You can go ahead and click back into the speaker mode if you want sort of the up close sort of tour of what we're going to be doing. So now let me talk to you about what we're going to be doing. Welcome Shaw and Jill and Alejandro, up to 140 people. Mongolia is in the house. It's great to see so many people from all over. Jill, great. Keep that coming. We're going to want to see who's there. So let's pop up that slide. So I'm going to take you through a quick overview of what we're going to do in the next 90 minutes. It's going to go by in a flash. What you'll see is we're going to do a big broad picture introduction to the strategy that was approved yesterday. We'll talk more about that. We're going to talk about where we are now with the ILC in 2021, a really cool intergenerational interview and some words of wisdom. We're going to talk about values and action. You can see we have some performances coming too, some more art that we've had. And we're going to talk about how we're going to go to where we need to go in 2030 to really center our work. So this 90 minutes is for you. Please use the chat. If you like something that someone says, hit the reaction button or pop into the chat a comment or a question. We're really here for all of you. So thank you. I'm seeing more people join. We're up to 145. Fantastic. So to kick us off, I think it's always good while we're not in the field, we're sitting behind computers. I see a whole group there. SNERDC, there's a whole group. If you could wave, I see a whole table looking at us. Many of us are sitting in our desks and we're not maybe connected to the land, which is so much what we're talking about. So I'm going to kick us off. We're going to kick us off with a video that talks about who do you trust in healing our planet? Those who use it or those who abuse it. So let's watch that video. Nothing like seeing people on the land, doing the work of the land, healing the land to kick us off. I think that's why we're all here. So you'll see, if you've seen the strategy going forward, that there's two very distinct centerpieces to this work of the new strategy. And this is two pledges, one around gender justice and one around defending the defenders. I want to call up, you can see here these two pledges. I want to call up Frida Githuku. She's the executive director of Roots Kenya, and she's an incoming council member. She's going to talk about the gender pledge. Then we have Nidhi Yasmin Durancan Morales. She's board secretary from the CCDA, Indigenous Farmer, and LAC on defending the defenders. So over to you two.
Thank you, Lisa, and good evening to members from Nairobi. ILC have taken notable progress towards transforming itself into a gender-just coalition and further promote generational equality. In this new strategy, we commit to sustain and accelerate these actions and the call for gender justice. And we will develop a 3-year gender action plan that builds from the previous action plan of 2018-2021. We are pledging that our strategies, policies, and mandate will include specific gender equality commitment and quality gender analysis. Of course, we will continue to strive for gender balance in the governance of ILC and in all ILC spaces and promote the policy on quotas. We will also strongly encourage and support the top leadership of ILC Council, the steering committee, the secretariat, but most importantly, the top leadership of member organizations at country level and the platform to use their political capital and social authority that they already have to promote gender justice and women land rights within their institution and externally in the development spaces and with partners. We will continue to build a positive social cultural environment within the coalition that promotes safe space for all and put together safeguards and intentionally promote meaningful participation of adult women, and young men. Of course, we commit to also call out and denounce stereotypes and discriminatory attitudes and practices. In terms of capacity building, which is an area that as a coalition we've really done quite well, we commit to avail resources, expertise, and financial resources, human resources and financial resources to build capacity on gender mainstreaming, to expand and reinforce women for women mentoring and the Solidarity Network, to engage a network of gender experts from the ILC members, and most importantly, to build the collective agency of marginalized groups such as rural women, grassroots women, youth, and indigenous women, and promote gender learning across the platforms. We will also support member organizations to carry out gender action plan, gender audits, and develop action plans and implement them. In terms of the policy advocacy, that of course is our primary mandate, we hope and we commit to make sure that the advisory, advocacy advisory that we offer to government is gender sensitive, but also promote gender mainstreaming in our project design, in our budget and resource allocation, promote joint initiative between teams that are leading the gender justice campaign, Women Land Rights, and other platforms. In terms of communication, we commit that we pledge that our communication strategy will be gender sensitive and that our external and internal communication will promote gender and generational justice. We will continue to generate evidence that support us to do gender analysis and that support us to mainstream gender in policy and in our program work. But all this is important if we are able to measure. So for that, in our new result framework, we'll ensure that we have gendered outcome with the measurable indicator that in the people's organization, women organization, youth organization, indigenous organization take a leading role, and that we continue to invest in sex desegregated data. We put in place systems and mechanisms to monitor progress on gender justice and women land rights. And that also includes training employees of ILC and members on gender sensitive M&E and promoting good learning and good practice within our coalition. Most importantly, because these things will be successful if there's a strong governance, we are committed to renew and expand the Gender Oversight Committee of the new ILC Council that shall oversee the implementation of the Gender Action Plan and provide guidance, feedback, and also validate the gender justice related policies. Thank you very much.
Sí, ok. Bueno, muchas gracias por la invitación. Soy Neidy Morales, miembro del Comité Campesino del Altiplano CCDA, una organización indígena y campesina en Guatemala, en donde los derechos de las defensoras y los defensores y una integración de las juventudes y la promoción del arraigo de las juventudes en el campo está muy desvalorizada. Se sufre la represión muy directa y sin lugar a duda esta estrategia para el año 2030 recoge bastante del aporte que deberíamos hacer en materia de equidad de género y tema de género directamente para trabajar la inclusión desde los territorios. Estamos claras de que la violencia y la criminalización atraviesa de una forma distinta a las mujeres. No solamente violenta en nuestros territorios, sino además también va plagado de una violencia contra el territorio cuerpo de las defensoras. Actualmente estamos atravesando toda una nueva ola de despojo y criminalización para nuestros territorios y generalmente somos las mujeres las que desde los territorios estamos defendiendo y estamos aportando de gran manera. y el trabajo con las juventudes, cómo las nuevas generaciones o cómo el trabajo desde los jóvenes también podría ir posicionando y valorando el trabajo de las mujeres. El capital de por sí no le da un valor ni le da una visibilidad al trabajo reproductivo que realizamos las mujeres, pero que al final también sostienen ese modelo y sostienen las distintas alternativas, sino solamente al trabajo productivo como tal, pero es importante que se visibilice, se valore, se registre y se empiece a plasmar desde nuestra estrategia de todos los territorios para poder seguir avanzando y darle no solamente voz a las mujeres, sino también el papel de sujetas políticas en las distintas iniciativas que se realizan.
Thank you very much, Nettie, and thank you, Frida. These two pledges, the Gender Justice Pledge and then the Defending the Defenders Pledge, are such a centerpiece of this new strategy. And it's not an accident that two very strong women have introduced these pledges. You could read more about these. I know the members signed off on these yesterday, but you can read more about these. But we wanted to put these pledges right up front because they're a really important part of the strategy. So thank you, Frida, again, and thank you, Nettie. You're going to be seeing members. This is really their strategy presenting as much of it. I'm going to turn just for a moment to give some top lines, though, on the overall strategy. I'm going to take you through a few slides. As I said at the top, this strategy was just approved yesterday with members, and along with, we've seen Mike in the chat talking a bit, there are 59 new members. So if you're a new member, if you could pop into the chat your name and your organization just to get a sense of who those new members are, really warm welcome. So what I'm going to do is just take you through a bit of pieces of it. So you all know this, that's why you're here, but land, we live on it, we grow from it, we drink from it, and we build our futures upon it, which is why we started with that video of people working on the land. And the new ILC strategy hones in on the fact that land connects everything, and securing land rights for women, men, and communities who depend on it as the first and essential step to unlock solutions to our forest challenges. So people-centered. So we have four big challenges we're going to talk about, global challenges. The first is, if we go back to the first one, the climate crisis. Many of you were watching what was going on in Glasgow. And land rights, we know, are a pathway out of the climate emergency, period. So our solution at ILC is by securing the land rights, we can ensure the conservation of the soil, preservation of the forest, and restoration practices. It's critical. The second big challenge that this strategy addresses is growing inequality. The solution that ILC will tackle is it's going to challenge the unequal power relations that too often concentrate lands in the hands of a wealthy few. And they're going to do this collectively. We will do this by campaigning to end farming without farmers, quite simply, and really work with the experts who know best about their land. Secondly, campaigning to keep private equity out of the food systems. If you saw the uneven land report, you could see just the crazy amount of land that is owned by a very few. The third major global challenge addressed by this strategy is that of shrinking democracy. It's a space I spend a lot of time in. And the solution outlined by the strategy is to focus on people's organizations that represent in the ILC more than 71 million people, really putting them first. They are the drivers of ILC's work, and we want to put them at the forefront of the initiatives. How we do this in shrinking democratic spaces is to protect those spaces through the National Land Coalitions, to take a multi-stakeholder approach. And ILC does this by putting those who depend on and live on the land at the center of all decisions about your future. Now, we come back to this over and over again, putting the people who live on the land and work with the land at the center of all the decisions. And the fourth and final challenge, there are many, but these are the four addressed here, is the unsustainable food system we're living in. So the solution is that ILC will highlight the role of securing land rights for smallholder and family farmers, Indigenous people, and local communities, because again, they are the true experts in their field. We'll do this by centering on a human rights approach, tackling, as we just heard from the pledges, the gender discriminatory cultural norms, laws, and practices, and increasing transparency and accountability. Now, these four challenges are very closely linked, and ILC knows and seeks to transform the system and the power structures that drive them. That is the contribution to building a more just, equitable, and sustainable world. And we believe that only collective action through all of us here, 181 of us here, can bring about that meaningful change. That's why we bring together diverse members to find solutions that work for those historically excluded from decision-making. And again, yesterday we welcomed 59 new members, and now the ILC is 302 members strong from 84 countries. You can see that, all the people coming in from all over the world. To tackle these challenges, we're going to focus on 3 shifts. So we have a slide that shows some shifts. So first, shifting power back to the people. Systems change is about shifting power. And this strategy aims to do so by challenging the inequality through ILC's 10 commitments to people-centered land governance, but also by putting the people's organizations at the core of ILC initiatives. And only by putting the power into the hands of those whose lives depend on the land can we achieve inclusive and sustainable development that truly leaves no one behind. Second shift, shifting attention to land rights. ILC will unblock lack of progress on the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, around land indicators in focus countries, because land rights are essential to achieving 13 of the goals, 59 targets, and 65 indicators. Focusing on land helps push the progress of the SDGs. And the third and final shift is focusing on, and we heard this with Frida, on data-driven advocacy for accountability. Because what doesn't get measured, it just doesn't get done. And ILC will support its members to gather people's data on land governance and use it to monitor and hold governments accountable. Now, this strategy coincides with a decisive moment in our history. There's a narrow window in this decade to avoid further climate catastrophe. We know people are being affected right now, but to avoid further, an urgent need to progress the Sustainable Development Goals, as I mentioned, and an opportunity, a golden opportunity to build new systems that work for people and the planet, particularly as we emerge out of COVID-19. So I want to go to you with a poll. We have a couple polls today, and ask you what part of the strategy really sticks out to you, so, or inspires you the most. So we have the gender pledge. I know you probably want to say all of the above, many of you. Is it Defenders Pledge? Is it land rights as a pathway to address the climate crisis? Is it the power shift through partnership for systems change? Is it through people's organizations at the helm? Or if none of these do, please put it in the chat. And thanks to everyone for participating. See those polls coming in. Half of you nearly have voted. As you're doing that, welcome Angelique and Yakanabai. I hope I did that right. Thanks for these comments. Pastoralists are climate resilient and eco-friendly food producers, but not much support in the process of securing their pasture land use rights. Thank you. These are the sort of comments. Drop these comments in. This is your strategy. Okay, we're almost there. Let's go ahead and show the results. Okay, so we can see land rights as a pathway to address climate crisis. 36% of you said that is number one, followed by this power shift through partnerships to systems change, 27% of you. Then followed by people's organizations at the helm. We're going to hear this time and time again. And then, of course, they're all very important, Gender Pledge and Defenders Pledge. So thank you, everyone, for doing that poll. We're going to have another one coming up in just a minute. So now I want to shift us from the strategy into where we're at now with ILC and 2021. Now, those of you who took part in Tuesday's session saw the glimpses of this beautiful triennial report that isn't just beautiful in its design, but in its accomplishments with the ILC. We are now going through so many unbelievable changes and policies, and it's such an extraordinary time to sort of think about where we're at now. So this is the second poll question that we have that we're going to ask you. It's going to pop up in just 1 second. So which impact numbers, we talked about these in the triennial report, and there'll be a link that you can click on, but which impact numbers are you most proud of the collective work that you've done all together? The 59 new members, 77 member-led platforms and coalitions, B, C, 52% of women in the governing roles, D, 72 policies changed, or E, 115 practice changed. Thanks, Stefania, for putting that in French and then again in Spanish. Give you a bit of time, catch up with all the different languages being spoken. Rita, the poll button should have popped up on your screen. So it should, you should be able to click on the bottom row. If you don't see it, go ahead and click polls and quizzes and it should pop up. Okay, so we're gonna go to the results. Thank you for all of you who participated. So as you can see, pretty close here, but definitely number one is 52% of women in a governing role, followed by these practices and then policy change. So all such important, go women, there's an arm being showed. Thank you very much. But I'm sure people are proud of all parts of it. So thank you. And to speak to some of the accomplishments that were done in data, but for more, but speak to the accomplishments of ILC, let's hear from Gilbert Mbogo. He's the president of the International Fund for Agricultural Development. He has a few words.
Dear friends and colleagues, on behalf of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all members and partners of the International Land Coalition to this 9th Assembly of Members. As one of the ILC's founding members, IFAD is delighted to have seen the ILC evolve into the leading global network on land rights. Today, it embraces 300 organizations across the world, many of which are people's organizations. In fact, the ILC brings together more than 70 million farmers, indigenous people, women, pastoralists, and youth. These are the people for whom we work. And let me say clearly, their voices must guide our efforts. Rural transformation needs to be fair, sustainable, and equitable. This is only possible when there are secure land rights for the people who live off and from the land. This is what we, as ILC members, call people-centered land governance. I applaud the ILC for the focus of its new mission, shifting power to the women, men, and communities who live on and from the land. Land connects everything. Land rights are central to overcoming inequality, to resilient food systems, and to democratic decision-making. Territorial rights for indigenous peoples are central, a message I heard strongly last week at the COP26. Thanks to the perseverance of ILC members, land rights are on the global development agenda. But changing the status quo on land governance won't happen overnight. It is a long-term and complex process. I congratulate the ILC on its results over the past 3 years, including the reform of 77 land-related policies and 115 examples of improved implementation of these policies. These tangible results are why we continue to strongly support the ILC as an innovative partnership that crosses the multilateral and civil society divide. Diversity is the ILC's greatest strength. I was pleased when IFAD's board last year supported a 10-year hosting agreement with the ILC Council. This will bring us even closer together, allowing us to, firstly, enhance impact on land governance at the country level in IFAD programs. Secondly, to keep land governance in the spotlight at the international policy level, such as at the UN Food System Summit and the Generation Equality Forum. And thirdly, to build better data on land. Ladies and gentlemen, in a minute, you will hear from Jean-Philippe Audinet, who represents IFAD as the co-chair of the ILC Council. Before I hand the floor over as IFAD president, I would like to reiterate IFAD's commitment and support to the ILC. I wish you a productive and engaging meeting.
Was a clear and very strong message. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to pick up on one of the things you said that really touched me in knowing ILC, and it's connected to all of the different faces we saw of waving at one another, and that's this notion of diversity being this greatest strength. And who better to ask questions about where ILC is in 2021 and where it may go than one of ILC's youth leaders who participated in the 2019-2020 ILC Fellowship Program. Because decisions about land use will impact generations to come. Yet often young people who will have to live with the consequences of those decisions are often excluded from the decision-making process. Winnie Chepkomi, Winnie, can you wave at everyone? Is one of these leaders stepping into her power and challenging the status quo in land rights and where she lives. She's going to interview Roshwan Jahan Moni. I guess everyone here calls her Moni. Moni, if you can wave. Deputy Executive Director of the Association for Land Reform and Development in Bangladesh. And Jean-Philippe, as we just heard referred to, he's the ILC co-chair emeritus and the lead of the lead and technical specialist of producers, organizations, and rural development at IFAD. Then they're going to turn around and interview her. And our hope in doing this is that it highlights the intergenerational nature of how this work must be done, learning from one another and spotlighting their diversity. But Winnie, first, before you turn to interview them, I know that this is quite personal to you because you faced this sort of discrimination that we're talking about. Can you give us the anecdote of your experience, Winnie? Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Lisa. My name is Winnie Chepkemoi from Kenya. I work for Kenya Land Alliance as a Women Land Rights Officer, and I lead the programmatic implementation. And in my line of work, just to highlight briefly, is I'm 30 years old, and I'm glad to be a young activist in the land sector. And so land is an emotive issue. And in our society, there's still that intergenerational bias, especially if you are young. Obviously, issue of land ownership. And I recall this one activity that I was doing, capacity building for Council of Elders, is a means of social behavior change towards women land rights. And they told me, of course, I had gone with my boss then, Odenda Lumumba, and they felt like I was not the right person to talk about land or to even, teach them about the laws and the policies and why women land rights matter. And so that was a wake-up call for us, for myself, of course, that these issues are real, and even for our institution itself, that these are the real issues that need to be projected and discussed more, and they need to have young people at the center of our programming. And so obviously things have changed now, because obviously they now understand why the real intentions of this, that it's not the young people actually taking over, but contributing to the cause. Thank you.
Great, Winnie. I'm going to turn it over to you to do your interviews. Over to you, Winnie. You get to be the talk show host right now.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, everyone. JP, it's really a pleasure and with lots of humility to be interviewing you and having this discussion with you. And we really recognize, your long-term experience. And I mean, with ILC, you've been there since inception. And just one question on your reflections. I mean, today is a very important day to all of us. That, what would you single out as one of the defining achievements of ILC since you've been part of it since inception? You're welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Winnie, and hello to everyone, fellow members and partners. Winnie, I don't know what you asked this to me, because I have been speaking all the time yesterday already. And my president of IFAD just gave, I think, an excellent statement, basically responding to the question you are asking me. I will just try to do something very similar, but maybe in different words, and using my perspective, given that I've been associated and working with ILC members for now more than 20 years. So when you were 4 years old, this was, I guess, 1995, okay? There was a big conference organized in Brussels at the initiative of IFAD and others, international organization, a conference on hunger and poverty. And out of this conference came out the creation of something called the Popular Coalition to Eradicate Hunger and Poverty. The conference had called for urgent action to empower the rural poor by increasing their access to productive assets, land in particular, and to strengthen their participation in decision-making. This was in 1995, you were 4 years old. Now today, in our strategy, we reaffirm that our collective goal is to put those who live on and from the land at the center of decision-making. What has changed between 1995 and today, 2021? What has changed is that the so-called Popular Coalition at the time has nothing of popular. This was a small group of 20 international organizations and NGOs with great ideas, but with no feet on the ground. Today, ILC is a coalition of 302 organizations, of which the majority are people's organizations with feet on the ground. And we say that we want to put people at the center of decision-making. No one put people nowhere, if not the people themselves. So this idea of building a popular coalition, what happened is that it actually happened. It was not at the time, but today it is. Today, ILC is an organization of a vast coalition with hundreds of national and local organizations that are the agent of change, but still today in alliance with these international NGOs and intergovernmental organizations that the nations, the government have mandated to eradicate poverty and hunger, and who so far failed to achieve it, because they were not sufficiently probably working with the people. Now I see ILC today as this popular coalition, or becoming this popular coalition that our old elders had invented in 95. And I see it already for a number of years starting to generate real change on the ground. These are the policy change that were mentioned and are very nicely presented in the report, but not only this. I think the empowerment that we are talking about is coming out of organization of people. And when we have this, what we call now national land coalition emerging, this regional land coalition federated in an international land coalition, this is becoming the force that the inventors, the founding member of the Popular Coalition in 95 were dreaming about. So this is for me the big achievement. ILC is a means to achieve something, but the coalition is itself a goal to empower people. This is my response to your question. Thank you, Winnie.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you so much. Moni, it's also a pleasure to be asking you this question, and with lots of humility on behalf of the youth activists or the young activists within ILC. And I would just like to also get your reflections on what would be your advice to me and other young activists. And I'm glad that ILC is leading the ILC Future Leaders Fellowship. And how can we get most of ILC? And of course, that would be projected in our institutions that we belong in.
This is my pleasure to receive your question. And this is a very direct question to me, even though I don't have a direct answer for you or a single answer to respond to you, because you are asking this question in a situation where your space is all over the world very much shrunken. And also you have still uphill struggle to overcome all these challenges. Again, I would say that not only to get the best out of ILC, it is also a point to be noted that you, the youth, are to contribute your best. So how to do this? What to instrumentalize? I think in between, so you have to prepare yourself better for collective action so that you are very much part of achieving the people-centered land governance, so that all who live on land and work on land have an equal stake on soil. So, and as I said, to do this or to move toward that, you are to better prepared. So what you have in hand. So as you have asked me about ILC, what is the best you can take out of, that is, I would say this strategy, which is a very living document, very vibrant one, very timely one. So in your hand, that will guide you through for next 10 years. So once you talk today, meaning you are talking for 10 years ahead. So this is the best thing you have in hand to get out of ILC, but this is a document. So you have to work on this. You have to strategize, re-strategize, and go for collective action, as I said. So within this, for your preparation, along with this strategy, you have to scrutinize, you have to instrumentalize, you have to explore what already ILC and its membership has developed together. That is one important thing, is developing data. So ILC has now strong data repository. So, and then it is in the process of further development where members are taking very much active role on this. So this is one of the very big strength of ILC, to be evidence-based, to be very instrumentalized in bringing change and addressing the odds. And finally, I would say that, so ILC, what is very unique and fantastic, that is the diverse membership, meaning diverse experience, diverse culture, and different learnings from all over the world you can gather. And you can learn, you can instrumentalize, you can strategize to go for collective action towards achieving people-centered land governance. That is from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Winnie, wonderful, wonderful words of wisdom, Winnie. And I'm gonna, just to keep us moving along, because we have so many people to hear from, thank Jean-Philippe, Moni, and Winnie. We got to see Winnie as a host of her own TV show. I can see one coming in the future, exchanging between the generations on how to do this work from those different diverse perspectives. So thank you very much, Winnie. Really appreciate that. Lovely to hear this exchange. So one of the things we all know, if we want to push that strategy forward 2030, is we have to take care of ourselves. We are our own assets in life, but we have to protect the asset. And to protect the asset, we also have to take sort of breaks and listen to music and sort of get into art. Yeah. So it's a real honor to have a little break, a little performance, not a break in terms of our concentration, but we can stand up and move around. I'm really excited to announce a surprise musical performance by Maino. It's a song about food sovereignty, and the song by Movimiento Madre Tierra, a Codeca partner in Guatemala committed to the defense of the land and the struggle for the peoples for buen vivir. The song recalls the resistance of the people to the privatization of native and Creole seeds and food sovereignty as the right of the people and our agrarian and food policies. So let's everyone go ahead and watch this musical performance.
Poesía de 13 lunas. El maíz maya es autóctono con identidad cultural. La mazorca milpa biodiversa y ancestral. El orden natural es alterado por transgénicos. Es tan letal como en el agua el arsénico. Es antihigiénico, esquizofrénico e insano. Hermanas, hermanos, rebelión por nuestros granos. Cortemos esto de raíz. Evitemos que nos invadan nuestras tierras arrasadas por semillas patentadas. Las semillas son sagradas, generosas, milenarias, originales, universales, diferentes y solidarias. Hay que respetarlas, defenderlas, es la herencia que dejaron nuestras abuelas para seguir en resistencia. La CIA, Monsanto, robando, estafando al mismo gobierno que nos anda transando y que nos pasa fumigando.
Defiende y construye la soberanía alimentaria porque es una buena alternativa para alcanzar el buen vivir, para alcanzar el buen vivir, para alcanzar el buen vivir. La soberanía es la base de la economía comunitaria. Yeah. Construyamos y defendamos la soberanía alimentaria y practicando el consumo sano, responsable. Yeah. Responsable. Yeah.
Contaminación y destrucción a nuestro medio ambiente, privatización de tierras, enfermedades y la muerte. ¿Les suena fuerte Les diré quién es Monsanto. Él quiere mandar en el sistema agroalimentario organismos genéticamente modificados, transgénicos mal usados, nos dejan perjudicados, timados, obligados a hacer uso de sus productos, regidos a cerrar su círculo corrupto. Evitemos darle poder a los del poder en este momento. Remediemos a Guatemala de este tormento. Este es el tiempo de luchar por nuestras vidas. Obreros, estudiantes, campesinos, campesinas, con el puño arriba. Por eso estamos aquí. Estamos en defensa de la grandeza del maíz. Con el puño arriba. Somos un mismo matiz. Por fuera 1000 colores, por dentro mismo barniz. Con el puño arriba. Agua, fuego, aire, tierra. Todos en defensa de la sagrada esfera. Con el puño arriba.
It's a great way to get us from the head to the heart, right? Connect the whole thing. So thank you, Guatemala, for the fantastic music. Really, really nice. You can give them a reaction of a round of applause if you'd like, and gratitude for their voice and their activism through their music. So I'm going to shift us all to where we started with the strategy, then we talked about where ILC is at, and now we're going to talk about where we need to go. And when I share the headlines of the strategy and what's going forward, I talked about climate change, and I talked about civil food, and I talked about civic spaces and democracy. And so we have 3 ILC members here where I'm going to ask them each a question from their perspective on what needs to be done. So I have, first up, I'm going to bring up Mirna. So Mirna, you are a prominent activist and also the president of FILAC, the LAC Development Fund for Indigenous Peoples. There's been lots of chats here about Indigenous people and pastoral people. As the world finally becomes more aware of the role of the world's 400 million Indigenous people in mitigating the climate crisis, how can a network such as ILC help to turn this recognition into action? And in a few minutes, Mirna, what are your thoughts? And thanks so much for joining us.
Muchas gracias por la pregunta y muchas gracias por la invitación a esta actividad al Consejo Directivo del FILAC. Les saludo desde mi pueblo, el pueblo Miskito de Nicaragua, y un pueblo que ha logrado realmente avanzar en el reconocimiento de sus derechos colectivos. Las últimas 3 décadas han sido determinantes en el reconocimiento de los derechos de los pueblos indígenas. Hemos pasado de un desconocimiento de nuestros derechos a un reconocimiento jurídico en muchas constituciones y en muchos instrumentos internacionales. Y en ese contexto, los territorios indígenas y nuestros recursos naturales han estado en total disputa y conflictos. Hemos visto la intensificación de la explotación de los recursos naturales que están afectando negativamente a nuestros territorios y están despojando rápidamente a los pueblos indígenas. Solo el día de ayer vimos imágenes terribles en el Estor Izabal en Guatemala, y también hemos visto imágenes terribles en Juguopoy, en Paraguay. 2 conflictos en donde la fuerza pública está despojando a los pueblos indígenas de sus territorios precisamente para apoyar industrias que afectan a nuestros pueblos. En ese contexto, ¿qué puede hacer una iniciativa como el ILC? Obviamente se ha señalado que una de las características de esta nueva estrategia es la diversidad de miembros del ILC. Y creo que ese es un tema fundamental en el cual ILC nos puede apoyar. cuando plantea su estrategia de defender a los defensores, ¿cómo logramos realmente asegurar esa defensa a nivel individual y a nivel colectivo, como en estos casos en donde están siendo expulsados de sus territorios comunidades enteras? Ese es un papel importante que ILC puede jugar hacia el futuro. Toda la estrategia vinculada al enfrentamiento del cambio climático. Ya hay suficiente evidencia documentada que demuestra que los pueblos indígenas somos realmente buenos, con buenos sustentos, apoyo de nuestros territorios y los recursos y la biodiversidad que necesita el mundo. Y entonces tener esa evidencia documentada es importante, pero enseñar, trabajar con las organizaciones miembros del ILC para usar esa evidencia documentada en las distintas incidencias para políticas públicas. Lograr a través de la membresía de ILC ese intercambio de conocimientos y de prácticas fundamentales que demuestran cómo nosotros, los pueblos indígenas, somos resilientes, cómo nosotros, los pueblos indígenas, cuando controlamos los territorios, somos mejores protectores del bosque, somos mejores protectores de las zonas marino-costeras, somos mejores protectores de la biodiversidad. Ese es un papel fundamental que también puede jugar.
Myrna, thank you. I don't think anyone doubts that her, Myrna, I think she's frozen in her passion. Can everyone see it? And her passion for her land. Thank you so much, Myrna, for that. I felt like I was with you on the ground. I'm gonna move from there to Samuel. I've introduced you in the chat just to keep the time going. And Samuel and Adriano, I have the duty of keeping us very short so we can include everyone. So I really ask to keep your responses to no more than 1.5 minutes if you can. Really sorry to do that, but want to respect everyone's time. So Samuel, let's just stop on you on a second. Your activism has been recognized as the winner of the illustrious Goldman Environmental Prize. I've been in the theater many times to see different prize winners. It's really an honor. So congratulations for that work. You've also faced prison time because of your activism to protect civic spaces, which we know are shrinking. Why is protecting the land and environment protector such an urgent task in your point of view? And what is the role of the ILC to do so? So over to you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. First, I'd like to start by correcting a mistake. I have not been in jail. I was in court many times and with the police many times, but not yet in jail. Why is it so important to protect defenders, land rights, environmental defenders? Probably because we will be experiencing more and more in the future defenders and communities, leaders fighting to protect their rights on land and on natural resources, especially because the pressure on land and resources is growing and will be growing more and more with the time. Under the pressure of demography, climate change, but also security. Where I come from, if you look at West and Central Africa, the size of the area available for communities' activities is shrinking, also because of security reasons. There are arable lands that are not accessible anymore for farmers or for transhumant graziers. So this is a problem, and we will be seeing more investment on land, more investment on natural resources. The second reason, I think, is because we need the land and the ecosystems to be in good shape so that climate change is properly addressed, including from our countries. We need that for food security, and probably Adriano will be talking more about that. And also land is becoming more and more a major source of conflict. So if we don't have enough land, we will have more and more violent conflict opposing basically everybody to everybody. And what ILC can do, and why it's important to have a coalition, is because what you see on the ground is often a community fighting against a company. The community has experience of their location, and the companies have a global experience. So by having a coalition like our coalition, we can learn from each other, from other parts of the world, and we can somehow balance the level of information that we have as community members to fight the company. We can be a bit more efficient in designing our response to the threat. We can also basically see the problem as a global one and not as a local one. And ILC helps sharing the information, making sure that the global information goes to the villages and that information from the local communities are taken in the national and global discussion. ILC finally helps in the monitoring. And this is also very important because they can reach out to the journalists, reach out to the governments, and try to put this into the policy dialogue. Thank you.
Gremlins took over my computer, but I'm back, everyone. I'm back. Really nice. Adriano, thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us and for those words and for correcting me, Samuel. I want to be held accountable for my accuracy. So Adriano, I introduced you into the chat. You're a senior policy officer at FAO, the normative UN agency on land governance, so an important partner. And we're about to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the voluntary guidelines on governance tenure, which set the benchmark on land rights for sustainable food systems and for social equity. Yet the land inequality report that ILC and Oxfam released, we've talked about, last year showed we're heading in the opposite direction. So how can FAO, as a member working with the ILC network towards this secure land and equitable land rights for smallholders, how can we work together? Over to you.
Thank you, Lisa, very much. And it's a great pleasure to be here as the FAO land tenure team leader. And actually is working with ILC and IN. We are a proud member of the coalition, and we want to also continue to work with all of you. I think the first and most important element is to recognize the elephant in the room. I think we all should celebrate correctly the many achievements we had, but also have a very sober analysis of the trends out there. And the trends is that inequality is growing. Therefore, business as usual is not an option to any of us. And that I can say about FAO. Is definitely, we cannot keep doing the same things and expect a different result. We will need to change the ways we work, and we need to collaborate a lot more. So first, I would say a fundamental issue to change this is to address the structural causes of land inequality, which lies into power imbalances. And to address that, on our view, there are a fundamental role to be played by collective action, which is very well recognized on the ILC strategy. And that collective action may happen in two levels. The first one, and probably the most important one, is the collective action of land tenure rights holders. People that have the rights to land, that come together as fellow rights holders to claim their rights. But alongside of that collective action, there is another level of collective action, which is when we bring different stakeholders together to try to agree and to negotiate ways forward. And FAO can play a role on both and can collaborate further with ILC and with ILC members on both sides, both in terms of bottom-up power building collective action, as well as multi-stakeholder collective action that does recognize and address power imbalances. We can and we should do more. And in full frankness, I believe we can collaborate a lot more with ILC as a coalition and each one of the members in many countries to achieve change at scale. The only way to reverse this trend of growing land inequality is to achieve change at scale that requires a new quality and a new impetus and a new ambition of collaboration to achieve that. And we are very happy to be part of that joint and co-creation of new strategies and new collaborations. Finally, also to mention that as a normative agency on land tenure, we believe that there is a need, a fundamental need, to bring land tenure back to the center of global policymaking. We need to bring it back. The 10th anniversary is a great opportunity. We cannot lose that opportunity. We have to bring it back strong. And in order to do that, we believe we need to build collectively a land observatory at global level. We need to agree on a land policy agenda. We need to have global products such as a global land tenure report that sheds light into land inequality. As ILC and Oxfam did very well, we can also do that through a broader collaboration with the UN system. And finally, to also say that we need to go a little bit beyond our own community on land tenure and ensure that we do mainstream land tenure issues in other policy opportunities and processes that are going on around the world, such as the UNCCD, the COP27, the UN Decade on Forest on family farming, the UN Decade on ecosystem restoration. So there is an element to also mainstream the fundamental principles of the VGGT into many other processes. So FAO is understanding that there is an elephant in the room. We do own the need to change ourselves and to collaborate further. And we want to really congratulate the great new strategy of ILC that we are part of developing, and recognize that it is a great opportunity for us to really inaugurate a new chapter of collaboration to address the big issues ahead of us. Thank you.
Wow. I don't know if you could see it, Adriano, but there are lots of heads nodding and hands clapping. And I think that goes for not just you and your words, but Samuel for your words and Myrna for her tenacity in the work. There's double thumbs up happening around. So thank you. Thank you very much, all three of you. Such extraordinary collaboration and people. What an honor. I'm going to move us as we're nearing, definitely not near the last, but not the least at all. We have some really important voices to come in on the how we're going to get there, right? The what, the why, an hour into the how. And so I want to invite first up, and I put this in the chat to just save a little bit of time with introductions, Leonard Mizzi. I've seen Leonard before as related to ILC. Many of you know him. He's the head of Unit for Sustainable Agri-Food Systems at the European Commission. So Leonard, I know you have to go to do important work at the European Commission. So I'm going to ask you your three questions very at the front so we can get your important voice in here. So in a word, Leonard, what do you like most about the ILC, followed by a quick sentence explanation?
So thanks, Lisa. First of all, what I like is that I see 200 networks and colleagues around the table. I see a strong woman power. And for us, what is important is accountability, accountability, accountability. You are doing fantastic work. It's a network of networks. You have multiplier effects, and you have a diverse community of practice. What I didn't hear much is the unleashing of the full potential of digital and digital transformation, so that what each and every one of you is saying is relayed and made accountable even to the donor community. Because that is also how we sort of put pressure on governments, on our partners. For example, in the coming months, we will have the EU-AU African Union Summit in February. And it's important to valorize what we are discussing today, because sometimes, quite often, unfortunately, land governance and this human rights angle is often forgotten, or it falls into the cracks, or it's too complicated to unravel. So I think it's important that even in our briefings, even in our bilateral dialogues with partner countries, this is also embedded, and accountability, because it is through the evidence that you have from the grounds, from this network, that we can sort of also nudge and put pressure on our partner countries, and also to escalate it at the levels of G7, G20, and the follow-up of the COPs, of the CBDs, and of the UN Food System Summit in terms of national pathways.
Leonard, that was very clear. What you liked, what we need to do more of, everything from digital to sort of the mainstreaming of land rights everywhere. So I think that was a clear message. Before you have to go, any last words of things that really stand out for you on the strategy, or any last words of wisdom or collaboration, Leonard?
Lisa, for me, what you explained in your introduction, inequality. We are still, unfortunately, with masks and situation, even in Europe, with 80% vaccination, is not good at all yet. We go back in terms of caution, let alone the rest of the globe. So inclusiveness, equity, gender empowerment. Michael, I think you know as well that we have a big gender transformative approach agenda and program with IFAD, with FAO, and with WFP. I think we need to integrate more these initiatives. We have so many projects and programs and initiatives which sometimes don't communicate to each other. So democratization is key, but this is also important from a constitutional aspect, because we have land and we have VGGT and we have constitutional rights, but are they empowered? Are they enforced? Is this power struggle also from a legal point of view? I think these are the things also that we need to look at closely. And on unsustainable food systems, clearly we have gone through COP and the UN Food System Summit. For me and for us as a team in Europe with our member states is that we want to show accountability at country level through the national pathways, where land and land governance and the right-based approach has to be at the core. So we want you also to tell us through Michael and through you, Lisa, and through this network, how accountability of national pathways is taking into account land governance. And because this is not only an issue of funding, I can tell you funding is there, sustainable finance is there. We can also empower and engage more financial institutions. We have the EIB, we have our European Development Finance institutions, because this is also transformative in terms of private financing, not only grant elements. But I think what is important is a policy dialogue and a political dialogue, which is multi-stakeholder. If this is not engaged and sort of part of our policy dialogue and our budget support, then it will be very difficult to have transformative change which will have impact on the ground. So accountability through ILC, and we clearly will continue supporting and also encouraging our member states to support ILC's, its vision and the rollout of your strategic plan for the next 7-8 years. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you for the deep listening and the very clear and practical words. I hope you're seeing in the chat the different comments. So thank you very much. I'm going to call up next Gabby Aguilar. Gabby, she's the program officer at Wellspring Philanthropic Fund, a fund that's been deeply committed to gender. I'm going to ask you, hi, Gabby, two questions. Hello. In a word, maybe followed by an explanation, what do you most like about the ILC?
Well, I think in the time I've known ILC, there are a couple of words actually that explain, I think, the network. It's diversity. And now with the new strategy, power shifting, and gender at the center of those two commitments. So I will try to also, tell a few, just a few thoughts about the question of the where we need to go, right? So this, for example, in looking at the strategy, actually, I thought there were two words, those two words that define the new approach, but I would like to unpack a little bit those two words. I think in the next phase of the coalition, ILC could play a really critical and important role in bringing land rights to the center of the debate on broader issues, as Leonard was mentioning, inequality, socioeconomic inequality, climate change, both of which have, as you know, enormous impact on women and girls in communities. And more specifically, I think you could advance that agenda across the strategic objectives that you have agreed in the new strategic plan. Making sure that gender justice not only means more responsibilities for women leaders in the communities or the organizations, but really a true commitment by all men and women to support a gender equality agenda as a shared leadership across the membership, including, for example, by disaggregating data on women's land tenure and participation in governance. So I think it's really important that gender justice, as you have already been doing, really cuts across all the strategic objectives of the coalition. It's also critical to focusing on elevating the voices of women in land governance at the local level, in national organizations. And it's really something that I really liked about ILC is how close it is to the province through the membership. And women are frequently underrepresented, both at the local and the international level. So the fact that ILC is accompanying the membership to include and integrate gender justice at the core of the organization's plans and commitments, it's really a critical mission, which I'm very happy to see ILC has taken so seriously in its strategic planning. I think it's also very important to the fact that you're so committed to using the power of the coalition to bring the voices and the learnings on gender justice to all other spaces in which you are partnering at the global policy level. Securing tenure rights across different land tenure systems, it's also an important value. You work across individual and communal land tenure systems, and it's really important and critical that those two communities of practice speak and work together, share strategies and share learnings. And I think the membership of the coalition is really very well positioned to bridge those two communities of practice. And last but not least, I think working with other actors in the field of land, climate justice, biodiversity, gender justice, etc., to advance the recognition and the protection of land rights and territorial rights is really critical, especially because it really lifts the voices of indigenous peoples, it protects the territories, it helps them voice their concerns, it really sheds light on what is really happening on the ground. So, and especially women within those communities. So I think the fact that you're positioned in the land rights field that speaks and is central to climate and is central to gender justice and it's so central to indigenous rights, it really makes you a critical player in bridging all those communities of practice. As Leonard was saying, I mean, there's still a lot of fragmentation in the way programs are implemented and the way projects are being designed, both within the donor community and also in the field. And I really look forward to the implementation of the strategy. The strategy really looks fantastic, and I really look forward also to accompanying the process of implementation. So thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. I hope you're seeing the claps and some of the things in the chat talking about gender justice and intersectionality being the key. So thanks for such pointed and clear what stuck out to you and ideas about how to go forward, really helpful. And I think the accompaniment at the end was something that was really well heard by the members. So here we are with 10 minutes left, everyone. It's been 80 minutes already, can you believe it? We've traveled the globe and hearing from different people on the strategy, from what the commitments are to the how and lessons learned and all of this. So now we're gonna wrap up, and I'm really got a few fun things left, and I'm gonna ask Ishmael Merlos, the director of the Territorial Development Fund, who is an outgoing council member. I'm gonna ask him for a few minutes. He's been listening very closely to take this all in and share back what's just happened in these last 90 minutes. So Ishmael, over to you. Good to go, Ishmael? Great.
Muy bien, muchas gracias a todos y todas por su participación en esta grandiosa asamblea, pero sobre todo también por el aporte que nos brindaron en el proceso de construcción de la estrategia que ahora estamos, cuyos contenidos estamos ahora compartiendo y fortaleciendo, ¿no? Personalmente he tenido la oportunidad de ser partícipe del proceso de elaboración de la estrategia 2022-2030 y creo que hemos construido, digamos, un camino muy valioso en esta lucha por cambiar el poder sobre la tierra en favor de las mujeres, los hombres y las comunidades que viven y trabajan en ella. Esta será la fuerza que guiará nuestra acción durante los próximos 9 años. Me agrada muchísimo escuchar de muchos y muchas de ustedes elementos muy importantes que tienen que ver con los desafíos y con las tareas que tenemos que desarrollar en esta ruta de implementación de la nueva estrategia. Hemos escuchado que estamos por la justicia de género a todos los niveles, incluyendo liderazgo, gobernanza y fortalecimiento de capacidades. La justicia de género es un compromiso muy claro establecido en la nueva estrategia. También defendemos a las y los defensores, trabajamos para que pare su criminalización. Somos todos defensores de nuestros territorios. Es importante escuchar, y sobre todo a los jóvenes, que cada día tenemos más y más jóvenes dentro de nuestra coalición y sobre todo están liderando procesos importantes en la lucha por la tierra. Vemos que son muy valientes y sin duda serán los nuevos líderes de la coalición y para el desarrollo de la actual estrategia. Escuchamos que la tierra y el territorio es parte de los debates en las agendas de muchas instancias globales a nivel del planeta. El cambio climático es parte de grandes debates porque su impacto está afectando al planeta y a la humanidad, sobre todo a los pequeños productores de nuestros territorios. Es fundamental crear espacios de diálogo con los gobiernos para sensibilizarles, pero sobre todo para establecer políticas que pongan a las personas al centro de la toma de decisiones sobre la tierra. Yo creo y estoy convencido que tenemos el privilegio de ser parte de esta gran coalición, que es única en la lucha por la tierra en el mundo, y que puede sincronizar acciones en los niveles local, nacional, regional y global. Esto es extraordinario, creo que es una fuerza, es una potencia que tenemos además que fortalecer. Tenemos nuevas organizaciones miembros y su sabiduría enriquecerá nuestras luchas por la tierra. No hay duda que tiene una altísima experiencia y eso fortalecerá nuestras acciones. Estoy convencido de que toda la membresía de nuestra coalición actuará con la energía y la creatividad que le caracteriza, superando las barreras que sin duda se presentarán en este grandioso camino que estamos emprendiendo, que estamos continuando después de toda la experiencia, larga experiencia de la coalición en la lucha por la tierra. Y esto es una gran fortaleza. No tengo duda de que en el 2030 la membresía de la ILC y toda la coalición tendremos la oportunidad de celebrar grandes logros y grandes éxitos, pero sobre todo el haber contribuido a la construcción de un mundo justo, equitativo y sostenible. Para finalizar, quiero agradecer a los socios estratégicos de la coalición, al equipo de la Secretaría encabezado por Mike, a los equipos de las unidades de coordinación regional y a todos y a todas, ¿no? Por sus grandes colaboraciones. Y obviamente creo que estamos invitados a emprender estas luchas que ahora nos proponemos con esta nueva estrategia con más fuerza, con más potencia, con más creatividad, con mucha energía, ¿no? Estamos clarísimos de que la tierra nos pertenece. Defendámosla y cuidémosla, cuidando nuestro planeta. Muchas gracias a todos y todas y grandes y muchos éxitos.
Thank you, Ishmael. Thank you so much for summarizing that so nicely. And if I can bridge from the creativity and the energy that you called for to move us forward, I'd like to bridge to some of that creativity. And I want you to now please meet Anu Verma. I know Anu is on this call. She's a facilitator for South Asia Pastoralist Alliance. She's going to introduce a poem about pastoral people and their pastures, and then she'll explain, which she'll explain in English and then deliver it in Hindi. So over to Anu.
Hi everyone. Today I, Anu Verma from South Asia Pastoral Alliance, is sharing a beautiful poem on the spirit and lives of Malgharis, the pastoralists. This poem is penned down by Shreya Shah. She is a poet, admirer of Malgharis and friends of Sapa. This poem is getting unveiled today before this forum. Through this poem, Malgharis say that we move freely on the pleasant pathways of the universe. Our wealth and dignity are our livestock. We do not know whether they are lucky to have us or the luck is ours. These pastorals and these pastures are our guide. We have a bit displeasure with the fragmentation of land that's happening by the humans. They are trading off on this heritage of God. But still, we continue as pastorals. They continue to say, our life gives us shelter and pieces, but still, we do not have any fear, neither we have any regrets. We just love our freedom. We do not seek a reason to live. Journey is our conviction. Long live pastoralism. Now, here is the poem before you in Hindi. जहां जहां हमें ले चले सूरज की रोशनी और कभी चंदा की ठंडी ठंडी चांदनी, बटोरते चले हम कायनात की डगर सुहानी। हाँ हम हैं मालधारी, हाँ हम हैं मालधारी। हमारा धन है पशुधन, स्वाभिमान भी उभरती कहानी। कोई उम्र हमको ना छू पाए, भले ही वो हो बुढ़ापा या जवानी। पता नहीं इस धन को हमारी या हमको हुई है इस धन की प्राप्ति। हाँ हम हैं मालधारी, हाँ हम हैं मालधारी। एक दूजे पे निर्भर हैं हम, फितरत में हमारी पुरजोर रवानी। जमीन के हिस्से दुनिया ने बांटे, जिससे हमें है थोड़ी नाराजगी। खुदा की इस धरोहर को ही हो रही ठेकेदारी, फिर भी हम हैं मालधारी, हम हैं मालधारी। दूध और मक्खन जो देते हमको, न बोले वो कोई जुबानी। देना उनकी आदत है, जो न मांगे कोई गवाही। मौसमों की तरंगे भी उन पे न लगा सके कोई पाबंदी। हाँ हम हैं मालधारी, हाँ हम हैं मालधारी। चारागाह ही हमारा पथ प्रदर्शक, टुकड़ों में बसेरे देती जिंदगानी। फिर भी न खौफ है न कोई रंज, हमको प्यारी अपनी आजादी। जीने की वजह न ढूंढे हम, बस सफर ही हमारी है तासीर। हाँ हम हैं मालधारी, हाँ हम हैं मालधारी। जय मालधारी। Thank you so much.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Anu. I know you're here. You can give her a clap or give her a little reaction. I really appreciate it. That's a world premiere of that poem. And so here we are right at the top of the hour, wherever you are at. And what I want to do is, we need the energy, Ishmael, right? To get us through to the 2030, we have the creativity and the energy. So I'd love everyone to go into gallery mode, and we're going to turn on some music. And those of you who want to, we're going to dance our way out of this third and final day of the Assembly of Members. Could you go ahead before you start dancing? The music's going to start in a minute. Put your one word feeling or takeaway in the chat. All 183 of you, how are you feeling right now? Or is there one thing that really stuck with you about today, these last 91 minutes we've shared of our lives together? Here we go. Proud and hope and enthusiasm, moved, inspired. Let's get that music going. Whoever's in charge of that. I like to dance. Happy and energy, proud again, hope, inspired, never give up. Here comes the music. Dance at your chair if you want. I'm looking at you, Frida.
And a climbing Kilimanjaro.
Go, Mike.
To demand for the land rights.
Grateful.
Women,
are
you ready?
Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro, we gonna march up there. We gonna march up there. Let our voices be heard. Let our demons be known.
You're a very good dancer.
Our land is alive. Our land is alive. Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro, we gonna march up there. We gonna march up there. Let our voices be heard. Let our demons be known that our land is alive. Our land is alive. I couldn't plant potatoes last year, cause the man in the suit came down with the government and chased me out from the land that belongs to me. I couldn't plant potatoes last year, cause the man in the suit came down with the government and chased me out from the land that belongs to me. Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro, we gonna march up there. We gonna march up there. Let our voices be heard. Let our demons be known that our land is alive. Our land is alive. Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro, we gonna march up there. We gonna march up there. Let our voices be heard. Let our demons be known that our land is alive. Our land is alive. My children cannot go to school. No fees, no food for the family. Cause my land has been taken by the government and given to a multinational. My children cannot go to school. No fees, no food for the family. Cause my land has been taken by the government and given to a multinational.
We demand equal rights and justice for smallholder farmers. Implementation of fair land policies. Better negotiation for land deals. With landowners making the negotiations. We demand free, prior and informed consent in all land deals. Stand up for women's land rights.
Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro, we gonna up in prison for defending our land rights, the land that belongs to us. My husband won't be home tonight, cause he's locked up in prison for defending our land rights, the land that belongs to us.
I say we vex, the youths them vex, we vex, activists are them vex, we vex.
Thank you, everybody. You can come off mute and say goodbye in your language, huh? You want to say goodbye in whatever language you have?
Shubhratri, Shubhratri.
Muchas
gracias.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.